Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Molly Pepper, the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs here in the School of Business. Welcome to Mondays at Noon. This is our weekly forum where we gather as a community to talk about topics that are important to us as a business school. I'm going to hand it over to our Dean, Dr. Ken Anderson, to kick us off.
Thank you, Molly. Welcome everybody to another edition of Mondays at Noon. If you're not in Spokane, it is a glorious early summer day here in the Inland Empire. I remind you as we get started, you will be muted. We will be recording, as Molly just mentioned. And we always like to start with a reflection. And I think that reflection for this week will have a little non-traditional, but we'll have two parts. I think the first is to take a moment and ask you to think of something that you can do to make a positive difference in the area of racism or social injustice. So as you're thinking about something that you can do in one of those areas to make a positive difference, I'd also like you to think about how you could commit to doing that in the next week or so. Lots of different ways that you can commit. If your choice of action was something you could do right now, you could do it right now. Molly won't take offense to that. But another way to commit, as we all know, is to tell somebody that you're going to do it. So just take a moment, think of an action you could take that would make our world a better place with respect to those two issues. And then think about how you would commit to doing that. Thank you. So a little bit of a twist on what we do before we get to our conversation with our guest today, Joe Smith. Molly has an exercise for us to go through. And so I'll turn it back to Molly for a couple minutes.
Okay, thanks so much, Ken. What I want to do this week is try just a brief networking exercise. I'm calling it a 3x3x3. And so in just a minute, I'm going to send you all, everyone on this Zoom, into a breakout room with 2 other people. So there'll be 3 people in each room. And you're just automatically and randomly assigned to a breakout room. And once you're there, the 3 of you will have 1 minute each to answer 3 questions. And I'll put these in the group chat so that you can reference them when you get to the breakout. So the 3 questions. First, tell people who you are. Start with your name. Share any information that you're comfortable sharing. Second, tell the other people in your breakout what's your connection to the School of Business. And then third, either something you're grateful for this week. It's always great to start from a place of gratitude, or maybe your answer to Ken's question about, what action can you take? And after 2 minutes, a countdown clock will start to let you know that there's 1 minute left. And once that minute is up, you will automatically come back here to the main Zoom. I recommend turning on your camera so you can see each other if that's possible. I know some people's Wi-Fi doesn't allow for that. And again, I'm going to put the questions into the chat, but any questions for me before I send you all there? Okay, we might have one room with 2 people, but otherwise, this is a 3x3x3. Here we go. Welcome back. I hope that went well. I hope everyone now knows at least one other person on the line. And I appreciate you all participating in that exercise. I'm going to hand it back to Ken to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Molly. Well, it's a great pleasure to introduce a Gonzaga Business School alum and a wonderful supporter of what we do, particularly with respect to our marketing students and marketing faculty, and that would be Joe Smith. Joe is currently residing in North Carolina, if I recall correctly, and he is now the head of sponsorships and regional marketing for Truist. And Truist, if I am pronouncing that correctly, is the result of a merger between Sunbank, SunTrust, and BB&T.
Yep.
And so they are approximately, I think, the fifth or sixth largest bank holding company in the US. And so we're thrilled to have you here, Joe, and welcome. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background leading up to your days at Gonzaga.
Yeah, great. Well, it's good to be here. Sorry I was a few minutes late, but I think I just missed some breakout sessions. I was having some technical difficulties. I also got the opportunity to join the office in our house. My wife works from home, so she's always had the office. So since we crashed her party with this whole work from home thing, I've been rocking out in a guest room closet, but she had an appointment this afternoon. So I get the office for the second time since the pandemic has started. So I'm pretty excited to be in a real looking place, not like a little guest room closet. So anyway, good to be here. So my background, I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. When I'm out west, I have to say Oregon. For all of you folks, I don't really need to throw that Oregon part in there since you're fairly familiar with the Northwest. I went to Gonzaga, graduated in 2002. I was a part of the soccer team for my 5 years there. Didn't play much, but I was on the team and made it a goal for myself when I was at GU to find a career in sports, given I learned pretty quickly after probably one practice with Brian Ching and some of the other greats that were on Gonzaga soccer that I didn't stand a chance in a career in soccer. So I made it a goal of mine to find a career in the business side of the sports world. So after GU, I went and got my master's at UMass Amherst and my MBA and master's in sport management, and have had a few different roles. I don't know if you want me to go through those now, or we can talk through them as we go through the Q&A, but my most recent move was from Bank of America in March, started on March 9th, probably one of the only crazy people to start a new job. About 3 days before the world got turned upside down. And I have been at Truist for about a little over 3 months now, and have met a total of 7 people at my new company since I started, since we've all been working remotely. So it's been an interesting time to join a company for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about that transition since you brought it up.
Yep.
What's it like making that type of transition with everything that's going on right now with COVID?
Yeah. Well, I made the transition before everything happened. So I had put my notice into Bank of America in February. About the middle of February, I took 3 weeks off and then started on March 9th. And I was in the office for a day and a half until we all got mandated to start working from home. So thankfully, the day I was there, my manager happened to be in the office, as well as 2 or 3 others from my team came in. So I got to meet a few people. I haven't met anybody that works on my team that is a part of, I've met my peers, 2 of my peers. I haven't met anybody on my team. I have a team of about 25 or so. So that has been a very interesting dynamic to try to get to know people, be the new manager, and try to gain the respect and also just the rapport of the team, and try to create a team atmosphere through this time. Because I learned when I started that there really wasn't much of a team atmosphere prior to me getting there, that a lot of my teams hadn't talked to each other. There was just, everyone was siloed, working in their own world, and it's not the way I like to operate. I like to thank my Gonzaga roots for being all about community, all about, having fun of where you work and what you do in life. And so I've really tried to bring that to the team, which is extremely difficult to do when you're actually not sitting in an office with anybody. And majority of people are working out of home in Atlanta. I've got people working out of home in Charlotte. So it's been an interesting experience. It's been fun though. I've had a lot of WebEx calls. I've had a lot of fun activities with the team to try to get people to know them on a personal level and try to understand what they're doing in a work setting as well. So it's been an interesting time to try to really get to know people through like we're doing now with the virtual world.
So what's, looking back on it and all the different things that you've done to build that team,
Yeah.
and this is kind of a little bit of a hard question, but what's the best thing that you've done to build the team?
Best thing, I have every 3 weeks held a WebEx call that had nothing to do with work, and we've just played a fun activity. We've done Pictionary, we've done house scavenger hunts, we've done, what was the other one we did? We did Two Truths and a Lie. And that was the best thing, because I am an advocate of work-life balance, and especially in the time that we are now, to just get to know people and have fun at work while what is going on in the rest of the world, whether it be social injustice or the racial inequality or the pandemic. It's a difficult time, and being able to relate to your team and being able to have those informal conversations, a few laughs, and getting to know people is the most important thing. And as a leader of the team, I see that as my role, right? I have a great team. They're going to get the job done, and my job is to make them feel like they enjoy the way they work and that I've got their back. And when we escalate and we start to communicate all the great work to my peers and my leaders, they feel like I'm going to position them in the best spot. So I feel like, that getting to know people is probably the most important thing, and really, frankly, the most fun we've had in the last few months.
I'm not up to speed on North Carolina.
Yeah.
Any expectation about when you'll all be able to get together in the office?
I don't think we'll be able in the office until at some point in 2021. We're also in a weird spot because, as you mentioned, we've got SunTrust and BB&T that merged. Legal day one was in this last December. Customer day one is until next September. So we've got about a year and a half between legal and customer day one. Truist purchased one of Bank of America's facilities or buildings in downtown Charlotte, which will be the new headquarters. So they're in the process of renovating that building and turning it into our new marketing floor, which won't be done until some point very late end of this year. And so we're not rushing anybody back to the office. We can and we have proved that we can work remotely and be just as productive as we all were in the office. And so we're, as in marketing, are going to hold back because we know we've got a lot of workers that need to be in the office, whether it's regulatory reasons or whether it's access to computers and printers. We know we can do our jobs at home. So we're really the lowest priority, and we've positioned ourselves that way with the company, that we're going to continue to do what we need to do. And when the time is right and there's space without going over the capacity, then our team will go back. So, and a lot of my people are still in Atlanta. So there's really only 3 people on my team that are already in Charlotte. So even when we do go back to whatever the new norm is and back to our offices, we'll still be working relatively remotely.
Wow. Wow. So tell us a little bit about what they hired you to do. You're the head of sponsorships and
Yep.
regional marketing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, SunTrust and BB&T merged, and we're in the process of creating this new company. As you said, you don't even know how to pronounce it. We've got a big job. We've got to tell people we made up a word. They made it up prior to me getting there. Truist, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything until we tell people what it means. And so it's kind of a pretty exciting opportunity to come in the marketing world. And I saw Peggy Sue. Do I still see you on there? And work with all the fun things that she taught me through my years at Gonzaga and how we can build a brand and ultimately tell the story of what that brand means. So I was hired by our CMO, Susan Johnson. She was at SunTrust for about 7 years prior to taking over CMO as Truist. And my role is a center of excellence in terms of, we have consumer marketing, we have wealth marketing, we have commercial marketing, and then we have so those are our line of businesses. And then we have various center of excellence. We have somebody that leads all of brand, advertising, media buying, social media. So that's all under one individual. We've got digital marketing. We've got our operations for marketing. We have strategy for marketing. And my role is kind of on a bit of an island. It's the other things in terms of the first being regional marketing. So I have a group that'll sit in each of our key markets. We're mainly Southeast Bank. We're from DC down to Florida over to parts of Texas. And so I'll have a marketing manager in each of those cities, being the eyes and ears and the experts for Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville, DC, Miami, Tampa, Orlando. And they're really there to ensure that the local message of what's going on in Atlanta, which is different than Charlotte, which is different than DC, makes its way up to corporate. And if we have an enterprise message, they can customize it down for their market. And so that's one piece of my team. The second piece is sports and entertainment. It was called sponsorships. We're in the process of rebranding it because I feel like nobody's passionate about sponsorships. They're passionate about sports and entertainment, and we're going to be the sports and entertainment marketing group. So we will position the Truist brand in various sports and entertainment platforms. So we have the entitlement of the Atlanta Braves Stadium, which is now Truist Park, used to be SunTrust Park. And then we have a variety of other partnerships, whether it be the Atlanta MLS team, the Atlanta Falcons, the Miami Dolphins, the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta. And we're starting to build more partnerships in our footprint to be able to speak to that passionate sports and entertainment audience about what our company is about. And then the third piece of that is any meeting or event that takes place, whether that's an internal teammate meeting or an external client meeting. My team organizes those events and meetings for Truist. And so I've got some folks that lead that for us, whether that could be hospitality, it could be client events, it could be a town hall meeting with our CEO and the rest of the employees. So right now it's all virtual. So it's a lot, we're learning the world of virtual events like this, but in the future state, whatever the new norm is, there'll be more hands-on events around our region.
Okay. So how did your journey, you mentioned Peggy Sue a couple minutes ago, how did your journey, including Gonzaga, through Bank of America, prepare you for where you are today?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think, first of all, just understanding the importance of a brand and building a brand. So that was what got me probably most excited about that. One, being able to lead a team and have a team of great performers, but two, being able to be on the front end of creating this new company. And so, through my whole career, I've always wanted to do that. And I always told myself that was going to be for a sports team, right? When the Portland Trailblazers were ready to change their logo, or Charlotte was going to get their new MLS team, or when the Portland Timbers, before they started, or when Seattle gets their NHL team, like these are things throughout my whole career. I've been like, these are moments that I want to be in the sports world to help create a new brand or to reposition an existing brand. I never thought it would be with a bank, but I've been in banking now for over a decade in the sports and entertainment and brand marketing side of banking. So these little experiences throughout life, whether it's, being a part of a team at Gonzaga, or, my first foundations of marketing at Gonzaga, or, and like I said before, just the community of which we all are so fortunate to have as being a Zag, and then going to UMass to be able to further that academic experience and learn about the sports industry and what that means, and then being able to position some agencies, and then on the brand side for Bank of America. Just a lot of little things I've taken throughout the years that hopefully have set me up well to be able to work with Truist and help grow this team. Like I said, a lot of it right now is just to me, it almost seemed common sense of like, we have to be a team. Okay. Well, but I'm finding that not many people see that value in the business world. We have to be able to have clear roles and responsibilities, but we have to be able to work together to get them done. And we have to have team morale, we have to have fun, and then we have to always think strategically and what's important for the shareholder and what's important for the brand versus what's just important for Joe Smith or what's important for my group or somebody on my team. So it's always that, that layer. And I learned that a lot at Bank of America. Like my manager over there for years, who was like a family member, was always reminding, first, do the right thing, and second, what's in it for the shareholder. And that's the biggest thing that you kind of have always had to ask myself that I found important, especially in a role like this.
Cool. So for the audience, you may not know. You might say, well, you know, Joe's from Portland. He goes to school at GU. Why all the way across the country at UMass Amherst? And I first learned of UMass Amherst, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 years ago as the premier sports management marketing graduate program in the country. We had a former student athlete at Gonzaga who was interested in going kind of the same route that Joe did. And I actually looked up the best-selling textbook in the field and called the author up and said, who's got the best program? And this guy said, hands down, UMass Amherst. So that's how you end up from Portland and Spokane all the way to the East Coast, I guess, right?
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned, Joe,
Ken, what's funny about that story real quick, and just to show the power of GU is when I wanted to go into the world of sports and talk to Bosman about what I wanted to do, the first thing he said is call John Kinloch, which is, I believe, who you're referencing, who spent some years at Disney and doing exactly what I wanted to do. And it shows just the community we have, because when I called him the first time, he answered immediately. We talked for a long time. He said, UMass is where you want to go. And he was a mentor of mine for probably a couple of years and really helped position my next path at UMass. And so it's been pretty neat to see that come to life. And I enjoy any opportunity I can to do the same for students. I've had some good conversations from folks when I was out there a couple of years ago and continue to try to do so.
Yeah, Kinloch might, I don't know, if he did 3 or 4 concentrations, those of you that are students on this podcast, he was very accomplished in the classroom. The other comment I was going to make in response to Joe, he mentioned working on the Trailblazers logo. And if you want to talk about one of the most esoteric logos in all of professional sports, I mean, it's not a bear, it's not a bulldog, it's this kind of, I don't know how you would describe it, but the concentric kind of the 5 lines going a couple different ways. Look that up sometime from a branding perspective if you don't know. It's kind of an interesting story behind that logo.
Yep. Pays homage to their founding in the 70s too. It's very, right. Everything about it is super unique.
Yeah. So you talked about, you know, coming back to campus, and you've been very generous with your time and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. What would you tell either a current student or recent graduates about how to best position themselves, what they're getting into right now, etc.?
Yeah, you know, I'll to answer that in the sports world. That's where I've spent the majority of my career. You know, it's not in a pandemic, but in terms of just what to do if you want to work in the world of sports and entertainment. It's an interesting industry in that you can do anything in sports and entertainment. When somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to work in sports and entertainment, I'm like, great. You want to be a lawyer? You want to work in finance? You want to work in marketing? You want to you know, work in stats and the statisticians we have? So there's so many things in the world. And the first question I always ask, where I hear about, is if they want to work in sports just because they love sports. And I try to tell people that's not the reason to want to work in sports, because almost everybody loves sports in some way, shape, or form, or some form of entertainment or some sort of lifestyle activity. You have to understand the reason why people want to work in sports. And that's one of the things I really learned at UMass, which was, and a lot at Octagon, which was my second job out of graduate school, which was really understanding the fan and why fans are fans, and how companies like Truist or Bank of America or Pepsi or MasterCard or anybody can position their products in front of those fans, and how to really tap into that passion they have for their favorite team, and how you can then ultimately sell a product through that passion of what they have. So it's more about just loving the game and more about why do fans love the game, and being able to position that for the brand in which you're working for. I also tell people in this world is you gotta be willing to work hard, and there's tons of jobs in sports, but there's also millions of people who want to work in sports. And so it's highly competitive, and having the right connections is always key. But having, the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody that might have a connection with the role you're looking at, or be able to introduce you to somebody, because as in any industry in the world, there's a lot of people that are interested in it. Those that can quickly get your name to the top of the resume list, or those that can vouch for you or talk to you or explain about, the more you can learn about the industry, the better position that I feel people will be, and willing to just go into a job. So for me, I interned at 4 or 5 places before I graduated UMass, all of which were unpaid internships. Worked for the Portland Fire WNBA team before they went under. Worked for the Seattle Sonics and the Storm. I worked for Peter Jacobson Productions, golf tournament company. I worked for IMG, now I think 180 over 60, whatever their name is now. But just a number of different internships to be able to learn about the industry and figure out what you like in it. And I worked in operations, I worked in PR, I worked in marketing, I worked in volunteer services for the golf tournament. So I was really trying to learn as much as I could about the industry. And then UMass taught me a ton about the world of sports and what the avenues are and what really intrigues you and what interests you. Because once you figure out what makes you tick in that world, then you can start to identify what you want to do in that. For me, it's been about building brand awareness and brand advocacy through sports entertainment versus peers of mine who work in college athletics, or who work in selling the properties, or work in ticket sales. There's just so many opportunities there, but trying to find the way that was best for you and what makes you tick is the best thing to do, I think.
So you mentioned a couple seconds ago, you used the phrase fan experience. What's changed just over the course of your career when you start talking about the fan experience?
Yeah.
I guess how have fans changed? Yeah.
And we're going to see, I think, this change even more in the next few months, and that is the dual screen fan experience. And so a lot of these leagues have been trying to tap into that. So it's me watching the game on my TV and consuming content about the game on my phone. And we've seen a lot of it in some of the national broadcasts of the national championship for football and basketball, where you could watch on ESPN, you could watch the game itself. You could flip over to ESPN2 and see the Clemson fan reaction. And then you can go to another channel and see another fan reaction, or go and now we're going to start to have another channel that's going to bring you all about the gambling experience tied to the game. So that second screen has changed tremendously. And it's funny, when I first was at B of A, we were talking about how we could promote our mobile app and people on their phones at a sporting event to be able to communicate. If you're sitting there, Ken, at a Dodger game, and we could be hitting you with messages on your phone, we know you're there because of Beacon technology, and we know, you're consuming our media, and we could start to put messages to you. And the first reaction we got from our CMO, this was probably a decade ago at B of A, was like, whoa, we don't want to be promoting fans on their phones in the game. It's like promoting the person at a movie theater who's on their phone. And so that was totally frowned upon. And you look back on it, and it's like it's not like a movie theater. You're not going to interrupt somebody by having your phone, go off in the middle of a game. Now that phone and how you're consuming the game, watching it live or on TV, but then also interacting with what you can and interact with the fan in a more one-to-one engagement about what they care about is huge. It's huge. So we're starting now to find, and the reason I say it's changing a lot now is I've had a lot of conversations with the Atlanta Braves in the last couple of weeks with games, if and when they ever do come back. There's going to be more opportunities, or the league's trying to find more ways to sell advertising to brands. So they have to make up for all the lost inventory of the signage that they're not able to see when games are canceled or shortened games. And so the league may be unlocking that second screen, so you could be watching the game on Fox Sports Net, and then, or whatever your regional sports network is, and then the team could own that inventory on either their YouTube channel or on their Instagram handle or on their Facebook page, where you can be interacting with the team while the game's taking place. And that would give the team more opportunities to sell more things for brands to interact with the fan other than just watching the one screen. So that second screen is I think going to be really huge moving forward and gives tons of opportunity to more tell your story. Because right now we can, with our signage in the stadium, we're going to have Truist logos everywhere. But what does Truist mean? People may walk by a branch when we open and think it's a dry cleaner. So that second screen or digital and social gives us a chance to tell more about what Truist is and who we are as a company, because you're going to have more time to interact with the fan versus just the logo you have on screen. So we may be using a lot of that to be able to tell our story beyond just the logo on field or logo on the stadium.
Interesting. Other big changes, or what you see? You mentioned what we'll see coming out of the pandemic, if and when professional sports teams do that. Other things you see that have changed, or you think, yeah, that's gonna change?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to a little bit about this league's mentality of what they're willing and able to sell and put on logos. So MLB, for example, has always been against, we're never going to put logos on jerseys because that would just be breaking the baseball cardinal sin, which is not going to do that. Now they're going to have to, because they're, again, trying to find more opportunities to make up brands for their lost value. So they're going to be more apt to do things like put logos on the field, put logos on the on-deck circle, put logos on patches on jerseys. And so a lot of these things that they were reluctant to test because they were worried about how it would affect the players or how it would affect the game, they're going to be forced to do it now. And so we're going to see a lot of these things change. And I think they're going to be changed for forever, not just for the pandemic. Because I think they're going to find out once they start playing the games, if a player has a logo on his helmet, it's not affecting how many home runs Mike Trout or anybody's going to hit. They're going to keep playing the way they are. And it's just going to give the teams more opportunity to drive revenue. And ultimately, that will hopefully then pass some of that revenue through to the players and help this whole battle you have between the players and the owners. And then the last thing is the gambling side. I'm not sure I'm a fan of it yet or a believer, but it's happening. And with being able to gamble in and around sporting events, we're going to start to have a ton of content built around that. And a lot of brands are going to start to play in that space. Banks aren't going to play in that space for quite some time. But there are going to be a lot of brands that will, and they're going to find ways to, you might have announcers talking about a game, and you might be able to choose who you watch to announce your game, because we can customize the fan experience so much more. And you could choose, I want to hear Dick Vitale, or I want to hear Dan Dickow talk about Gonzaga basketball. And then I could also choose to hear somebody else just talk about the gambling side. So there's going to be a lot of those fan choices I think we're going to see over the next few years as well.
Interesting. And for those of you that don't follow particularly professional sports uniforms, when Joe talks about the logo, he's not talking about the Nike swoosh on the Nike apparel that the players wear. He's talking about full-on branding. And correct me if I'm wrong, but WNBA jerseys are kind of out in front on that, right?
Yeah, in MLS, WNBA, MLS, NBA has the jersey patch on the sleeve. So there's brands paying, $7 to $10 million a year to put their logo on the jersey. And these numbers, they're crazy numbers, but they're not meant for established brands. They're meant for brands that are trying to just break that clutter and introduce who they are. But then you got to tell the story about what that brand means, like I said before. So there's a lot of brands that are doing it. Some because they're headquarters of where this teams play, some because they're just trying to break into the U.S. market and they're just trying to get eyeballs. But there's tons of opportunities, and you're going to see it more and more. NFL hasn't started talking about it yet because, financially and where their revenue share is and their media partners, they're not in a position to need that quite yet, but it'll be coming soon.
Okay. So a question from Molly Pepper, and I'd encourage others of you to submit questions via chat. Joe, what were the most valuable courses that you took outside of the marketing PR things you had in the business school?
That's a good question. Bowling on Monday nights, is that an option? Can I do that? The Monday night bowling? No. I think just a well-rounded Gonzaga experience, and in having to and taking more than just the business classes and all of the religion classes, and not just Catholicism, but learning about other facets of other religion, just that well-rounded being that you all create it's not, no one else does that. No one else I've come across in the business world done that. And I feel like it really instills this strategic mindset that like your answer isn't always the right answer, and being able to hear and listen to other people's perspectives and understand the broader sense is so important in this world. And I feel like, you know, if you just get so focused on like, I want to do marketing, so I'm going to take every marketing class. No, I should take everything that the university has to offer and try to become as well-rounded as possible. I think it's just so unique and so different. So I think that would probably be what I'd say was the most important of what I had.
Cool, thank you. Now here's one from Dr. LaRaz. It's probably similar to what she used to have on her exams back in the day. But she says, "Hi, Joe. How do you think about finding the right sports and entertainment partners that fit the brand, particularly with a new brand like Truist? Flip side, what might disqualify a potential partner or sponsorship opportunity?"
Perfectly timed question, because that is what we're in the middle of doing right now, which is educating our leadership team and Truist and what the sports and entertainment world is all about and how you identify those partners. So if you think about, and I'll answer this through the examples of both SunTrust and BB&T, and then where we're headed now with Truist. So SunTrust was very much the mindset of headquarter focused. So they did everything in Atlanta. They had the Braves, the Falcons, the United, the Georgia Aquarium, the Atlanta Tennis Open, like tons of things. So they wanted to say like, this is our home and we're going to do everything in our home. And that's one strategy. It works for some. It works for smaller regional banks. BB&T was in the mindset of, we're going to be anything that's important to our community. So BB&T actually has 12 naming rights venues in South and North Carolina and Florida. So 3 minor league baseball parks. So we're going to have a Truist Field, a Truist Park, a Truist Arena, a Truist Center, a Truist Stadium. So they had this mindset of like going out and whatever was important, going out and getting that deal for the company. I think both of those have their flaws. The way we're going to move forward, which is the first thing we look at is it in an important market in which we do business? Once you have that identified and we have our 8 or 9 key priority markets, does it drive revenue for the brand? And so that revenue is mainly tied to, are they a client of ours, or is there opportunity for them through this relationship to not only have them as a client and also other ancillary businesses of theirs as clients? So banks are different than beverage companies or consumer product companies because we bank the owners, we bank the brand or the team that we're partnering, we bank their ancillary business. And so there has to be some sort of element there within terms of that relationship that we have or opportunity for enhanced relationship. So is it an important market? Is there revenue opportunity? What's the brand fit? So we have seen, and then what's the, is it a premier partner? And I use those two together because the last few weeks we've gotten proposals for Truist to do a deal with the UFC or the WWE, and both those are premier partners, but there's no brand. I would say that there's not a good brand fit with the UFC and Truist. We're about thriving communities, making Truist a local company that cares about our clients and our customers. So the UFC, I don't think fits that brand alignment. And then is it a premier one? We've gotten a number of opportunities from second or third tier golf and baseball leagues or golf leagues. And my position is if we're going to be the 6th largest bank in the country, we should be doing with deals with premier partners that position our brand, that have a large number of fans in the market that we can tap into versus going to do a deal with the second or third golf platform or a lower tier league. So I think, so premier partner, brand fit, drive revenue. And then another thing too is there opportunities for us to position who we are in the community? So are there opportunities to do our community initiatives align? So we have our initiatives that we have as a company or our foundation pillars, and we want to align with companies that share that same attitude towards the community. So we have a scorecard for Truist that I'm developing that will answer probably like 8 or 9 different questions, and we'll rank those on a number of scales to figure out what the right property fit is. And then when we make that decision, we'll bring that to our leadership team and say, here's the property, here's the revenue opportunity, here's the fee that they're asking for, and then here's the whole scorecard of things that why this one is better than another that could be out there.
Let's see, got another one here. Oh, by the way, Peggy Sue gave you an 11 out of 10 on that answer. One from Anna, thank you for taking the time. What advice would you give to undergrad and graduate students who are looking to pursue a career specifically in marketing?
I always say to people, have as many conversations as you can with those out in the real world, and understand. And then when you have that conversation, I always say follow up with a thank you and ask them who else they can introduce you to. I think the more people that you can meet and the more people that you can get exposed to, learning different perspectives about what they like about the job, what they don't like, where the challenge is, how they got into the career, is just so helpful. And the more of those conversations you have, the more times will happen is I'm looking for a job on my team. Oh, well, remember I had that great conversation with the person from Gonzaga, or my agency's looking for somebody. You'll just start to, you want your name to pop when people are thinking about opportunities of that good conversation that you had with that hungry student who wants to get into the industry. And so the more of those you can have, I think the better.
Cool. Got a question from your former advisor, probably, Jane Hessian. And Jane wants to know, how does Truist position itself as a corporate citizen?
Yeah, this is one of the, and I didn't speak to this earlier, but since I have moved over to Truist, this is one of the things I have been most impressed with, which Truist lives, everyone in the company, top to bottom, lives within a very clear, defined purpose, and that is to build strong communities. And every decision that we make comes back to that, and you feel it in the way that we treat our employees. We hear it from our CEO on down all the time, and it's a very purpose-driven company. And so I've seen that in examples with response to the pandemic and response to racial inequality and the way we have done things. It's been comforting to see that, versus my old friends may have just dropped $100 million check on the table and said, hey, we're here to support. I feel Truist reacted in the pandemic quickly and made a donation or a series of donations for a significant amount of money, but truly cared about it and did things to help move the conversation forward and to help those impacted the pandemic. And then in terms of the situation right now in terms of racial inequality, we have a clear stance that we don't agree with it, but we didn't go right out at first and just like throw money at the problem. Our very clear direction from our company was, we need to listen first, and we need to understand what we don't know. And as the leader of our group basically said, sit down, shut up, and listen. And he told all of us to do the same thing, and we did it with our teams. And so we really wanted to understand our company and our teammates before we went out to the public. And so that's what we've done. I've seen a lot of is we have to care about ourselves and our team before we can understand how we can affect the external world. And so that's something that I felt really good about the company and the reaction to these, the two situations I've seen them react to.
Cool, thank you. Last question, and it comes from Molly Pepper, and it's probably gonna tap into your creativity skill set here. Are there new jobs in sports and sports promotion as a result of the pandemic?
Well, I think in the immediate responses, a lot of people are losing jobs, as in many industries. I've had a number of people across agencies. We had a series of layoffs today within our company that are being affected by it. I think moving forward, I don't know if there'll be new jobs, but as I said, there's going to be a request for new creative thinking of how to position brands in this world. And it's going to be more, like I said, the second screen in sports is going to become so important because we don't know when we're going to be able to be back in full action. And even when we are back in full action, what's it going to look like? So I think there's going to be a change in how we go to market. we're not going to be able to, I don't think in any time future, the biggest thing in sports, in events, was to touch one-to-one interact with the fans. And that might be at a consumer display where you'd be outside of the Super Bowl and the brands are there and you're going and playing games and talking to like all that stuff's not going to be the same. So there's going to be this new way to interact with the fan without having to touch and be close to the fan. And so I'm not sure what it's going to look like in the near future, but there's opportunities for ideas and new creative thinking because of it.
Cool. Well, Joe, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I look forward to seeing you again when you travel out west. Make sure you stop by, and on behalf of everybody here today, again, just thank you so very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. And as I said before, anytime anyone you hear through the Gonzaga family that has questions or an interest in whether it be the marketing world, the banking industry, or the sports entertainment, which is where a lot of my experience has been, please send them my way. I love having as many conversations as I can and being able to meet new eager students.
Cool. Well, thank you, Joe.